Hi, everyone. Good Sunday evening to you. It is my favorite time of the week. I hope this is yours. Well, there's probably some better times for your week, and I hope that for everybody. But anyway, it's Sunday evening. It's time for Region Weather Live. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Gone is the snow that we had, the severe weather that we had last week. What a week we had, right? This week does look quieter, but we do have a couple systems. One that could include some thunderstorms in the near term, like tonight, and then we turn much cooler, and I'll say actually colder as we get into the middle half of the month, and that will arrive actually as early as this week. So we'll talk about the pattern change out ahead of us as we wish for a warm up and we don't get it. That's how March goes. We'll chat about it here in this Sunday evening edition of Region Weather Live. And good evening to you, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us here on this Sunday evening edition of Region Weather Live. We'll cover all that in just a minute. Want to make sure that you guys had a nice weekend. Jeff's with us. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Susan. Good Sunday evening to you and to everyone, she says. Rhonda, hello to you as well. We are back in the man cave here doing a little weather. Last time we were here, we were obviously covering the tornado warning. So good to be back in the chair in a less exciting, less high energy kind of note here as we had that rough week around here. Kurt's here. Kurt's here on time. Kurt, I appreciate that. Thank you, buddy. Eileen, hi to you. And Christopher, good to see you again as well there, buddy. And hi, Honor. Thanks for joining us on our YouTube channel. I appreciate that. All right, so let's get into it. As always, we want to thank our sponsors. The sponsors keep the show and all the work that I do behind the scenes for free. And it's not just, it's not because I would charge for this. Absolutely not. Stuff costs money. And I mean, it really does. I have subscription services to two things that have gotten more expensive. I use software to make the graphics, all that stuff. All this stuff adds up. Even the web page, they charge an arm and a leg for that, and the sponsors take care of that. So please take care of them. You see them over on the side of the screen. Discovery Travel. It's discoverytrvl.com. That's our local travel agency. And they are just awesome at planning trips. I've had two people actually respond saying, hey, we went on a trip. They planned everything for me. They found me better deals than I could ever find in Expedia or any website, whatever it happens to be. They had a great experience. And again, if you're looking to travel anywhere, which a lot of people are this time of year, Discovery Travel will take care of everything for you. And you'll end up with a lower price, and someone will take care of the itinerary if you want, your flights, your hotel, or just your itinerary once you're there. As much or as little as you possibly want. It's Discovery TRVL, our local Northwest Indiana travel agents. Also, Ewing Mechanical Services. A lot of us had power outages last week. They specialize in things like whole home generators. If you're thinking about one of those, we actually have one here, and it's been wonderful. We had two winter storms that knocked out the power, and it was great to have that. Amazing to have it. And so Ewing Mechanical Services, place to go for that. Your Northwest Indiana HVAC and everything related to your house. Make sure you pay them a visit if you need any work done in your house. If you need work done on the pipes, Tiger Plumbing, place to go, tigerplumbing.net, our favorite plumbers here in Northwest Indiana. And then Grieger's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram out of Valparaiso. They are a wonderful community, but around Northwest as the support local causes, you should support them. If you need a new Jeep, they've got great Jeeps. Finally, our two new sponsors. I want to take you through this just real quick here of their websites. Fewer sponsors, and I just want to increase your familiarity with them. St. Jude House Family Violence Prevention Center and Shelter. They do amazing work in Northwest Indiana. Again, domestic violence. It comes in all sorts, right? And 1 in 4 people are affected by it in terms of women, 1 in 7 men. It's something we don't like to talk about, right? But they do a lot of stuff. Here's your crisis hotline. It's stjudehouse.org. All sorts of things, legal advocacy, case management, all sorts of different things that you could possibly need. But more importantly, this tab down here, their mobile advocacy program, is brand new. So check them out. If you have any coworkers like that could possibly need them, they're a great resource. And then our other new sponsor, Public Service Adjusting, they're out of the Portage area. These are all local businesses. This is awesome. If you ever have an insurance claim, let's say you had a lot of wind damage or something like that, and you need an insurance claim, and they give you some money back, your insurance company does, and you don't think it's enough, you think you're really getting shorted by this. This is where Public Service Adjusting comes in. They'll come in and advocate basically for more money for you, and usually get it. They'll do all sorts of things with any claims that you get, whether it be shortfall. They'll also review your yearly policy to make sure you're getting as much as you possibly need for the littlest amount. They do all sorts of insurance work, which is great. And we've heard wonderful things about them already. They have over in Northwest Indiana. Okay. All right, let's dive into it. I usually, don't really do a whole lot with the National Weather Service here locally. They do great work, but I want to make this real quick. They did a really nice recap of the snow that we just got last week on their webpage. And you'll see, here's the title: Marco brings quick accumulation, strong wind south of I-80. A couple things to note here in their write-up. I went over all of it, and I won't give you all that, but this right here shows where this storm system went and how big it was. All of these dots on here are either flood events, which we had downstate as expected. They had massive amount of wind energy from this storm system. Red, they had some tornadoes from this, pretty decent tornado outbreak as well. But then you got north of here, and all these dots up here for the heavy snow, Great Lakes, and we certainly had that. But it went, the low pressure went over like Cincinnati up towards the Cleveland area, and this low pressure broke records, the lowest pressure magnitude records in recorded history. I can't say ever because we don't know what happened back in the dinosaurs, right? But Paducah, Evansville, and Louisville all had low pressure records for this time of year, it tells you how strong that low was that was heading up. And when you hit a strong low pressure like that, not only do you get a lot of wind, which we had, but you go from this heavy snowfall that we got here in the region to EF1 tornadoes just south. There were tornadoes in southern Indiana, northern Kentucky, southern Ohio, and not far off. I mean, it's pretty amazing. The fact that you can have that within a certain number of miles with a system like this. The other thing was the snowfall, obviously. We all didn't end up with 4 to 8 inches. We knew it was going to be a very sharp cutoff. And they go into detail about why this was such a tricky storm to forecast, even up to 6 hours out with this. But here's who ended up with snow. I posted our little snowfall map there on Saturday, but 4 to 6 inches in the blue here, that was, the bullseye that we were expecting. Anywhere from 4 to 8 was what I was going with. But you notice the sharp cutoff. I mean, northern areas of Lake County, even Lakeshore, Porter County, barely saw anything. And then you get back towards Chicago, they didn't even have a snowflake. Unbelievable just how sharp a cutoff that was. And again, if you're interested in the meteorology of this, I won't bore you with it, but there's a tab called Forecasts, and it talks a lot about kind of just the thoughts on the low pressure and why it was so challenging to forecast that low, even just a couple hours out, which is pretty amazing. Because normally we have storm systems down 2 to 3 days out. We can start talking snow totals, stuff like that. But this one obviously was very difficult to forecast. It kept me up at night. So I'm glad to be back to getting some sleep again. I want to start with this. This isn't a science lesson. This isn't an amoeba or anything like that. This isn't like the latest strain of COVID. What this is the jet stream, and we're looking up above. So right here where my mouse is, this is the United States. Just to kind of get your bearings straight. Here's Alaska right here. Here's Asia, and then you're getting upside down over here on the other side of the world. This is the polar vortex, folks. This is what it does all the time. The blues and the whites, that's where you've got the really, really cold air down to the surface. And then, the reds are where you have the warmer intrusions of the air. That down here with all this red, that's where the tropics are. Okay, so we're looking top down on the globe. The reason why we really haven't had cold air over the last month or so is because the polar vortex and the real lobe of cold air with it, what it is, it's always circulating, gets kind of blobby during the year, and you can see how blobby it is here. But the real cold air has been seeing this, but that's where the cold air has been. So there's really been no cold air in Canada to even tap into if we were to have a cold front go by or anything like that. Watch how this changes. So this is today. I want you to kind of keep an eye on this line right here, right where my mouse is going. Notice how there's no cold air south of that. Okay, that's northern Canada. Watch what happens as we go through time. Okay, I'm going to take this pretty quickly through next week and then eventually into this weekend. And you'll notice how now that line's kind of gone and we're starting to see kind of these blue blobs or the real cold air from Asia kind of blob its way across the North Pole and then in the areas of northern Canada. And you notice here, as we're getting into March 12th, March 13th, you notice we've got the blue now in northern Canada. So all it takes is a cold front to come through that we can pull some of that cold air down, whereas it didn't exist last month. And now it's back. And you can see how everything kind of starts to lean our way a little bit more in terms of the cold. It was kind of rotated on the other side of the Earth, and now it's kind of rotated back towards our side. No big Arctic hits look to be in the forecast. That's when this blue would be dragged down by some kind of storm system. So I don't see any of that. That's the good news. But still, the air is going to be there, and that means that cold fronts that go by are going to have a little bit more punch in terms of those colder temperatures here as we go over the 10 to 15-day range, and that would bring us into middle March, okay? So let's narrow it down. That's your big picture look. I always like to think about big picture. Let's go down to local level now. Let's talk about our forecasts for the week, because the whole point of this show for me is to get you out the door tomorrow morning knowing exactly what to expect the rest of the week or what to look for on your phone apps, your weather apps, in terms of what might change. So tonight's real interesting. We've got a little boundary going through. This is actually a warm front. There's some thunder and lightning back towards Rockford with this. I would not be surprised if we had a little thunderstorm here tonight. And the reason why, there's real warm spring-like air down to our south. That's trying to make it north, and I think it does tomorrow. And this is really going to be the last spring-like day over the next 10 days as it looks. So I want to make sure we get out and enjoy tomorrow. But anyway, for tonight, here's your little thunder chance. Just north of that's going to be some heavier wet snow up towards Michigan and Wisconsin. We don't get snow out of that, but we get a cold rain with some thunder perhaps. Should be brief tonight. It's out of here by tomorrow morning. It'll be just off towards the north. Can't rule out some stray showers tomorrow or a pop of a downpour, but for the most part, we'll be dry tomorrow as this low pressure moves through. Out ahead of the system, there's a real nice push of that warm air. So can we get into the 60s tomorrow? I think so for a lot of communities. We may hold 50s in our northern counties. Either way, it's going to be a pretty nice spring-like day, mainly dry. Again, a couple pops on radar with this boundary sitting just towards our north, but not a bad day by any means. And then what happens tomorrow night into Tuesday, you notice the lines kind of change. These are all associated not with a low pressure, all these ice, it's associated with a really cold Canadian high that's starting to move down. And so what that's going to do is bring a persistent east-northeast wind in here that's dragging that cold air from Canada in. So we're going to set the stage for colder conditions later on this week, starting Tuesday, but through the rest of the week. And then we're going to throw a system into that, okay? So we'll go quiet on Tuesday, but we're turning colder. So bigger picture view, we're going to go a little bit more long range on this. There goes our system Monday into Tuesday. And then here comes our next system. Notice the blue starting to settle on us. This is that system we talked about a couple days ago. Remember, I showed you that low off the East Coast that went all the way up into Greenland and comes back at us. This is coming back at us. This was a system that was off the East Coast last week, and now we're starting to see it kind of retrograde back into the U.S. That's part of that high pressure. So everything's kind of coming at us from the northeast, which is a weird direction, but that will help colder air to settle in here as we get into Tuesday. By Wednesday, we're developing a pretty strong storm system out towards our west. There's several areas of low pressure with this. It's not a real well-organized one low pressure storm like we just had, but this will be a large area of moisture that will go from not just our area, but all the way back into the Rockies with copious amounts of snow and rain, depending on where you are on that spectrum. For us, where we're going to likely start as some rain around here as we get into the daytime Thursday. And you notice this system kind of takes its time moving on in. But I would have showers in the forecast on Thursday. Again, you can see how it's kind of unorganized. It's kind of blobby in nature. GFS has it as a little bit better organized system. But this is the next one to watch, would be Thursday. By Friday, the system's here. You notice how the Euro model starts us out as a little bit of shower activity on Thursday, and then it goes to full-fledged snow on Friday. This is going to be the time frame to watch because remember, we now have cold air in place. We're changing the pattern. We're not going to get these storms out of the Gulf that bring that little bubble of warm air up. So we're not worried about that. But we'll have cold air in place when the moisture arrives. As it snows, as it rains, we're close to it. But all indication right now is that we get a little snowy around here later this week. And then behind that, all the models also agree on this, that system finally gets a push off towards the east. And we bring in some some very cold air for even this time of year. Maybe some highs in the 20s, low 30s. We'll see how cold we can get, but that would kick off some lake effect snow around here on Saturday. And you notice this big old bowl of cold air sits right across the Ohio Valley all the way through the beginning of next week, with the chance of a few more storm systems moving in. Euro hints at a little bit of a warm up next week. This would be the following week, but the GFS does not. So the other model I want to show you, and we could talk temps too, but I'd rather just answer your questions after this because I think this pretty much covers it. The other model I want to show you is the GFS, and what it does, it brings, as I mentioned, that moisture in a little bit quicker in here on Thursday night. You notice how it's all rain, heavy snow to the north. I kind of like this solution better. The Euro's kind of messy with it, and it has a rain snow mix around here on Friday, but then the Euro is not as strong with this low, and the GFS is, where it has cold air settling over the Great Lakes next Saturday. So next weekend looks like to be on the colder side. And then it has another system right after that next Sunday and Monday. This would be an accumulating snow. This would be a good storm. If this were to verify, if I were talking amounts with this, I mean, this would probably be a 4 to 8, 6 to 10er. And the reason why is because just the way it looks. Reason why is we get in heavy snow and then it starts to wrap up with more heavy snow on the backside. So GFS is saying decent snow next Sunday, Monday. Euro doesn't have it. The GEM, the Canadian model, has something similar to this. So two things that we're going to be watching here over the long term is that Thursday, Friday system. How does that evolve? How cold do we get next weekend with some lake snow potential? And then what happens with the Sunday and the Monday storm, okay? And these are both going to be storms that we're really going to keep a close eye on. But you look at the GFS behind that, whatever system that is, next Sunday, Monday, we get cold Arctic air all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Spring break's not going to be fun for them. For us, this is a cold shot. Again, it's not crazy cold. It's going to be basically 20s, 30s, and some 40s on the map all the way down to the Gulf Coast. And that would kick off the lakes because the lakes are just wide open this time of year where they should be frozen. And you can see the GFS continues to have kind of a snowy scene all the way through March 19th. A little bit of rain, snow mix there, but no big warm-ups in the forecast from there, okay? So in terms of temperatures this week, again, tomorrow, I think we're going to make a run at 60 degrees, especially our southern communities. We'll get knocked back down as we go the rest of the week into the 40s and then the 30s. And it looks to be a pretty chilly week around here as we go throughout the first full week of March here. All right. So I think that's it. So let's chat whatever questions you have, then we'll get you guys on your way here on this Sunday night. Again, I appreciate all the comments this week. I got a lot of feedback, a lot of PMs about the coverage this week. Vast majority of you appreciated it, so I really appreciate you guys taking your time out of your schedule to send me messages. So I really appreciate that. Okay, Tom, thank you very much. I see that. Let's see. Jeff says most of March looks cold. Hopefully that doesn't happen in April. Yeah, Jeff, most of March does look cold. And again, this has been kind of on the modeling for a while, but there were times when February looked cold, so I don't trust it a whole lot. But as of right now, through mid-March, it does look like we stay on the chillier side. I think a lot of that actually stems from looking at the long-term patterns of the jet stream and that polar vortex. And what I showed you at the beginning of the broadcast kind of tilts our way. And that polar vortex, when it's up into Canada, you're tapping into some of that cold air from time to time. So that's what March does. We get these little tastes of spring in February, and the last couple of years, it's like it just takes forever to warm up. I do remember when I was at Lakeshore Public Television in Maryville. I forget what year it is. Maybe it was 08. I think it was 08. Could have been 12. I'm not sure. But anyway, we had a March where we had, and you guys probably remember this, we had 5 or 6 days in the 70s and 80s. It involved St. Patrick's Day too. I remember St. Patrick's Day was really warm that year. And we had the leaves came out on the trees, everything was blossoming, and it was amazing. It was really, really abnormally warm, but it stayed warm. And then I remember the following year, it was abnormally cold because I remember showing on our broadcast the contrast of the same tree that was bloomed in March, where it was covered in snow the following March. So March can do that to us. It can be very fickle, but more often than not, the last couple of years at least, and again, this doesn't mean this pattern is going to stick around because everything goes in waves. But the last couple of years at least, it's been a cold March. April's been damp and cold, and then May starts like chilly, and then all of a sudden we're out of it, and it's 80s and 90s around here. So real interesting to see. Yeah, Tom says seasons are all delayed. Here comes more winter. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Samantha asking how much snow on Friday near Portage and Munster. Still way too early to call on this, Samantha. Hopefully we'll have a 1 to 2 day shot at knowing what this storm does versus the last one where we were trying to predict it 6 hours out. But there's still too much difference in the modeling, Samantha, in terms of how this system moves in. As of right now, it doesn't look like a huge snow, but my gut would tell me that we are going to have snow on the ground by next weekend. I do think something out of that Friday system, whether it starts as rain, changes over to snow, whether it comes from lake effect, I do think we have snow on the ground, at least a good portion of Northwest Indiana by next weekend. Okay. Joey, you too. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, and as always, guys, thank you very much. Darren, I appreciate your comments as well, for sure. Let's see. Maxwell asked a good question. Could these temps moderate next week since it's March? Maxwell, the models have a good handle on the fact that it's March. So I don't think so. The temperatures can always fluctuate, right? The cold air may not be as cold when we finally get to it. Cold air could be colder by the time we get to it. So just in terms of the modeling, I don't think March has anything to do with it. The one comment I wanted to make, though, is the fact that March snow isn't as bad in my mind as January and February snow is, right? Because of that higher sun angle. There are days in March, especially later on in the month, because that sun is getting stronger and stronger, that, it's 40 degrees outside, but you go outside and you're like, this feels pretty nice. So March really is a lot more manageable in terms of any cold hits that we get. I think snow's more manageable in March. Yeah, you can get some of those real heavy wet snows like we just got. But when you have it, it's really not that bad because it usually melts off in a couple days, right? With that strong sun angle. So I kind of like March for that. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I just feel like March isn't nearly as bad as the middle of January where, sometimes you can really get locked into that cold. Yeah, Tom, I think it was that year. I think it's 2012 was the year that we had that huge warm up. It was unbelievable. Yeah, and Caitlin's got a good story. My husband and I got married in Cedar Lake on February 17th, 2017. It was like 78 degrees and sunny. Unbelievable. Yeah, it's just something else. I mean, you just don't know what you're going to get this month. Some months you know the range, but March has huge temperature ranges. It's amazing. Yeah, Rich, I've been following this like crazy. I've been on that time change for a long time. I talk about sunset and sunrise times and that time change probably every 2 days when I'm on air, and I think a lot of viewers get sick of it. They're like, just tell me the weather, not the clocks, But Rich, I'm so excited for that time change. I love springing forward, especially because that later sunset. Let's see. Jeff, you're welcome. Brandon's hoping for more snow. And the snow, yeah, Maxwell for sure. The snow melts the next day. 100% agree. Yeah, me too. All right, guys, I think that's it. All right, Sunday night, go have fun. Go get ready for the week. I know we've got, obviously, I don't know what's going on this week. Is March Madness start? Not yet. So there's no brackets to fill out your workplace. So you probably have a basic week at work. I hope that's the case. And that way you can enjoy yourself and take some time for yourself, hopefully this week, as we're kind of in between, sports, stuff like that. Not quite playoffs in basketball. We've got March Madness starting and whatever else you might have going on. All right. I think that's all I wanted to cover. So that's it. I appreciate you guys. We'll be with you as we go throughout the week. Mary, have a great evening as well. And I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule here on this Sunday to geek out with the weather for me. I hope that helps. All right, guys. Talk to you soon.